we want to protect that willpower because the willpower is God when it comes to productivity. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kate and this is our Chatty Book Club. We are in the middle of deep work. We're actually, pretty much smack bang in the middle. We've read up to page 150 and I'm not gonna lie, it's grown on me quite a bit. This last 50 pages has been a lot better. So I think he was still kind of just getting to the point, but I was just like, get to the point a little faster. But I think we're at the point, which is good. There will definitely be some interesting conversations here. Let's just get into it. Let's not waste any time. So, the bimodal philosophy of deep work. You divide your time, dedicating some clearly defined stretches to deep pursuits and leaving the rest open to everything else. And he also said that it's only effective to reach extreme productivity. I do not like that term. If enough time is dedicated to such endeavors to reach maximum cognitive intensity, which is the state where real breakthroughs occur. In terms of how much time we're talking about here, he says the minimum unit of time for this type of deep work tends to be at least one full day, and like a few hours in the morning will not do. Who can just give 24 hours? And then how does that work with like taking breaks to eat and taking breaks to go to the bathroom or have a shower? Like, because if you go have a meal or something, then your brain is not in the deep work state. So you can't, like, we are not machines, unfortunately. Like, we need to sustain ourselves in some way. So I was like, what is this? What if you have a job or kids or just any other commitments? I was like, this isn't quite adding up here. So that was the bimodal philosophy of deep work. But the next one is the chain method, which is where you write an X on your calendar every day you do something needle moving. A few hours of writing, like writing your book. It could be posting on TikTok. Obviously, it depends on what your goals are. The days where you do that needle moving thing, you put an X. Obviously, this is the same idea as having a habit tracker in a planner or a habit tracking app. It gives you that visual representation. Every single day that you do it, you are even more motivated to do it again the next day because nobody wants to break that chain. Generally, the longer the chain is, that goes alongside you getting better or the skill getting stronger or the results becoming more evident. I mean, I just can't subscribe to the idea that deep work is only effective when you put in 24 hours or you disappear for a whole week or, whatever. Obviously, disappearing for a whole week is like the ideal in terms of getting shit done, but because unless you have a job that gives you a ton of holidays or you have a ton of money so that you don't even need a job, this is difficult to implement. Also, many of us want to learn how to do deep work so that we can get to the point where we don't have a boss, where we have the financial freedom to do things like that. That's the case for me anyway. There has to be another way for the average person to create depth and excellence. So then he raises the possibility of pushing your wake time earlier with some rock solid routine. So let's say you wake up at 5 a.m. You do deep work until 7:30. Let's say you get ready and you go to work, you do your 9 to 5. Even with this in mind, like, there are other things to consider. You need to consider your sleep, you need to consider your nutrition, you need to consider your hydration, your nighttime routine the night before. Are you spending enough time actually winding down from your day so that you're not still like trying to go to sleep, not being able to sleep or not getting good quality sleep, and then waking up at 5 and being like, there's no way I can do deep work? There's a lot of things that go into this, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but it definitely suits some people more than others. I guess you could argue it may be how much you want to prioritize it. So finally, he mentions that it is possible to squeeze large amounts of depth out of a demanding schedule. So here's where my ears perked up, and I was like, okay, give it to me, Zeddy. That is where building depth as a skill comes in. If you're struggling to get into the deep work every single time you sit down and do deep work, it's going to be rough. But if you have your environment down and you've built the skill so that you sit down and it's happening and you're in it, you're in the flow, you're in your deep work state, that can be implemented whenever you want. To build deep work as a skill, you need to build a ritual as follows. Number one, it has to address where you work and for how long. Ideally, if you can use the same location for every deep work session, that's even better, because your brain will associate that location with that type of deep thinking, deep work. If you can't have the same location every time, that's all good, but just to be aware of. And also to have a specific time frame, so it's not, as he puts it, an open-ended slog. I I can attest to this. I've definitely sat down to get things done sometimes and haven't put a time frame on it, and it just seems like I'm there all day. I'm getting distracted. My brain is like, hey, remember this thing, and then my phone is like, hey, look at me, and it just generally doesn't work. I did a little test on my Instagram the other day. I set myself a timer challenge, like a 30-minute challenge, to get a certain amount of editing done. I literally shared it. I was like, in the next 30 minutes I'm getting this done, and I was focused for that 30 minutes. There was no distracting me. I mean, obviously that has the added element of the accountability, but I definitely think having that specific time frame where you're like, this is happening for the next 30 minutes, all focus, and then after that, whatever. You know, it's just like gives your brain an actual deadline to get to. Your ritual should also address how you work once you start to work. For example, no internet, phone in another room, metrics, using metrics like how many words have you typed. If you're like, obviously writing a novel is a good example here, but like how many words you've done in a 20-minute period, because mentally litigating over what you should and shouldn't be doing and assessing constantly if you're working hard enough, these are all unnecessarily draining your willpower, and we want to protect that willpower because the willpower is God when it comes to productivity. Also, with the metrics, I love this idea for maintaining focus. Again, that kind of ties into how I did that 30-minute timer challenge. I was like, this is what I'm getting done, getting this amount of editing done in the next 30 minutes. You have something to aim for rather than just, like he said, an open-ended slog. It should also address how you support your work, how you're feeding your brain, how you're taking care of your body. Are you eating good quality food so that you don't have brain fog? Are you having a good strong coffee first thing so that you just kickstart your energy? Are you ensuring that you have access to good food? Not ideal if you're in the middle of a deep work site and you're like, you know what, I've got a bit of brain fog because I'm really hungry, let me go eat, and then like there's nothing in the fridge. Also integrate light exercise, optimize your environment, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that go into this, but once you take the time to carefully put it together, it will bring you such wonderful results. I've seen it in my own life. I'm not going to say I'm perfect whatsoever, but I've definitely been working on these little elements, and every single thing adds another boost to your productivity and to being able to get into that deep work state. So how can you implement this into the main task that you are working on? What metrics can you use? Say, for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to do a certain amount of work. How can you look at that? Is it posting a TikTok? Is it writing a caption? Is it writing a blog post? You know, what does that look like for you based on your needle moving goals in your life? So he includes this really interesting quote from Nietzsche. Nietzsche? I don't know. I think he was a German dude. And the quote is, "It is only ideas gained from walking that have any work." Now, this was an interesting one. I'm not a huge walker, but I've often gone on walks and had really good ideas. Now, obviously, I don't agree that you can't have any good ideas outside a good walk. I think that's ridiculous. But it's definitely an optimal environment to have good ideas, particularly if you're walking through nature and stuff, because it just quiets the mind. There's less stimuli, and the stimuli that are there are beautiful and often inspiring. So maybe you can incorporate a walk into your day, maybe at the start of your day, maybe at the end of your day, maybe in the middle of your day, whatever you think would benefit you more. And the great thing is that you get to systemize it so that you don't waste mental energy figuring out what the hell you need in that one moment. Like, yes, creating this ritual may require experimentation, trial and error, but let me tell you, it will be fucking worth it. Now, one of the big tips, Jesus Christ, one of the big tips he recommends is implementing radical change to your environment, potentially paired with a significant investment of time or money, because it increases the perceived importance of the task and reduces your mind's instinct to procrastinate, and it boosts your motivation and energy. Now, what the hell does he mean by this, you ask? This could literally be something as simple as going to your local cafe and working there, going to the library, or when you have that significant investment of time or money, what that means is booking a really expensive suite in a hotel and going there specifically to focus on this task. Because if you spend, I don't know, $1,000 a night on a really fancy hotel, there is no fucking way you are gonna waste that time scrolling on your phone. You're gonna get in there, you're gonna be like, I'm here for this one thing, I'm gonna get this one thing done. Like, obviously it doesn't have to be $1,000 a night, but whatever it would be, a significant investment of time, of money for you. Even just like any random hotel where it's like €100, €150 for a night, that's still significant. A free option, you could also just go to the lobby of a fancy hotel so that you're in that vibe, and maybe it took you a while to get to the hotel. That's your investment of time. Deep work doesn't have to cost you money. It's just an interesting thing to look at. There was also an example that he gave, which, oh, this is like in the future when I have a ton of money. I would love to do this, right? So this guy, I don't know where he was from, but he booked a round trip to Japan, flew to Japan business class and back business class. And after that, I don't know how long the journey was, but like hours and hours and hours, he had a finished manuscript of his book. Especially when you're in the air. I always think about this on planes. I'm like, I don't even have access to the internet right now. Like, this is the perfect time to get things done. I mean, do I always get things done? No, but you know, it's a good opportunity if you are that way inclined. Truly, I would love to do this. I was gonna say when I grow up. Oh. So in conclusion about this tip in particular, these gestures can push your deep goal to a level of mental priority that helps unlock needed mental resources. Sometimes to go deep, you must go big. Energetically, look at what message that's sending the universe or whatever higher power you believe in. You are so serious about this thing. You are so committed to it. And the universe loves and rewards that shit. You will be sprinkled with magic, I just know it. Now let's talk about the whiteboard effect. He says, for some types of problems, working with someone else can push you deeper than if you were working alone. You will have a more valuable output. It's good for solutions to problems and fleshing out creative ideas. Identifying the what of a strategy is straightforward. I love strategy talk, and I always feel whenever I get overwhelmed or something just feels too big for me to tackle, I bring it back to the strategy. It really helps a lot, in my opinion, to bring it back to basics and just look at things like, okay, how do we get from A to B? Great. Let's just focus on that action item and what I actually have to do. Cal Newport says that the more difficult part of strategy is the how. We've got 4 things to tackle on how to implement a strategy. 1, how to do it. 2, how to do it consistently. 3, how to maintain the mindset and the energy to do it consistently. And 4, how to make it an enjoyable journey. All 4 of these are crucial. I urge you to flesh this out regarding your own goals if you haven't already. I reckon it's definitely better to be prepared before the fact rather than coming into obstacles or falling off the wagon or whatever and then scrambling and not knowing what you're meant to do or what's actually gone wrong. So then the author gets into, I don't know if it was a book. Yes, there was a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, and he basically gives a little summary. So I'm going to go through bullet point by bullet point. 4 disciplines of execution. Number 1, focus on the wildly important. He says, the more you try to do, the less you actually accomplish. I will say that this is most likely my biggest productivity struggle because I am multi-passionate. I have so many interests. I literally am building 2 different businesses right now. More to life, and I've got my other brand, the true crime brand. My focus is split between those 2 things. And then I also want to get into the best shape of my life. I want to be strong. I want to focus on my mindset. I want to keep learning. Like, there's so much. Then you've got things like a job, meal times, showering, etc. So I definitely find my focus is split between a lot of things, but I want it to be. Something I need to implement moving forward is doing less so that I can accomplish more. And when I say less, I don't mean less time at things, but I mean less things. So I can have more time at the things I am doing, the things that are wildly important. He says, aim your execution at a small number of wildly important goals, we'll call them WIGs, and have a specific goal that would return tangible professional benefits to generate a steadier stream of enthusiasm. Then there is an interesting quote. He says, to win the war for attention, don't say no to distractions. Say yes to the subject that arouses a deep longing and let the deep longing crowd out everything else. Oh, I love that. That's a very purposey, like purpose driven. What is your soul calling to do? and just do that, and that drowns out the noise. But for me, the noise is eating, showering, and working out. So I can't just ignore that. Number 2, act on the lead measures. So once your wig is identified, you need to measure your success. For example, time spent in a state of deep work dedicated towards your wig. And you could do this by hour or something. Number 3, keep a compelling scoreboard. People play different when they're keeping score. Can you imagine having literally a whiteboard in front of your desk, and every time you get another 1 hour of deep work towards your needle moving goal done, you get to put another tally on it? That shit feels good. It feels so good. And then as you progress, you see more little lines, more tallies, and it's growing, and you're just reinforcing in your brain that I am fucking doing this. I'm taking steps towards my dream life. Look at all these steps on this wall. You're not a 4-year-old with a crayon, on this whiteboard. So keep a scoreboard of number 2, and then when something important happens, like a milestone, for example, circle the tally mark corresponding to the hour where that milestone was hit. It's very motivating to do this because you get to connect the deep work hours with tangible results, and it calibrates your expectations of how many hours are needed per result, and that makes you want to do more. So for me, that could be like, let's say I was doing this towards my YouTube videos. Every hour I'm doing deep work towards my YouTube videos, I'll be able to see then how long does it take for me to complete a full video. Just an example, but you use that for whatever your goals are. Okay, I'm back. I had to take a little break because my brother came home and I haven't seen him in about 6 weeks, so had to have a little probably hour-long catch-up. Number 4, create a cadence of accountability. So put together a rhythm of regular and frequent meetings of any team that owns a wig. Wildly important goal. In these meetings, you confront the scoreboard and you commit to specific actions to help improve your score before your next meeting. You know, you describe what happened with your commitment since the last meeting and so on and so forth. The kicker is it must be regular to be effective. You might be looking at this and you might be saying, I don't really have a team of people, like it's just me working on these goals. But this is where accountability groups come in. This is where you can pair up with someone, or you can do this on your own. I've done this on my own for years, and to be honest, I'm at that point where like I think I need that bigger accountability, and I'm thinking of incorporating something with my boyfriend. I mean, I haven't told him yet, but anyway. You can sit down with yourself and say, for the next hour, I'm having a meeting with myself. I'm looking at what goals I set within the last week, what actions I took, what went well, what didn't go well, and how I can improve my score on this scoreboard between now and next week. I have said this before and I'll say it again, never pass up an opportunity for accountability. Another concept that he brought in, which is just yes, at the end of your workday, shut it down. No email check, no social media check, no mental replays of conversations or of certain tasks you did and how you could have done better, and no scheming for the next day. Once you switch off for the day, you switch off. The work is gone. Interestingly, this is something I have a strategy for within module 2 of the art of progressing. No, module 3 of the art of progressing, and it's called the exit strategy. Basically just brings you through how you can go from full work mode in the zone to completely shutting it down and not taking your taking your work home. And part of the reason why it's so important to shut it the fuck down is because some decisions are best left to your subconscious mind to untangle. And he uses a really interesting analogy. So the subconscious is like Google's vast data centers where statistical algorithms sift through terabytes of unstructured information, whereas the conscious mind is like a home computer with carefully written programs that return correct answers to a limited amount of problems. That's an interesting one because once you shut off, that's like shutting down your home computer. You are not thinking about the problems, you're not strategizing, you're not scheming, but in your subconscious mind, it's still sifting through using algorithms that you don't even know you have. Isn't that how the gravity dude figured out gravity? He stopped thinking about it and then an apple fell on his head and his subconscious mind was like, here you go. Shutting it down is also important because downtime recharges the energy needed to work deeply. This one seems pretty obvious to me, but it does go on to say if you exhaust your attention stores, you'll struggle to concentrate, and this is what attention fatigue is, which kind of goes back to that idea of having a limited amount of willpower. And we don't often think of attention in this way, but I actually alluded to it a little bit earlier about if you're walking through nature, there's so much less stimuli and it allows your mind to fully calm down. But there's an example in the book where it studies the difference between a walk through nature versus a walk through a busy city. And because there is so much going on in a busy city, you can't really fully relax because you're worried about, are you going to get run over? Is the light going green? Are you blah, 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 blah. Like there's so much going on. How do you really go from like high alert to in that scenario? Because there is so much stimuli, there is so much more for your attention to be grabbing onto. This goes back to that idea of a cluttered workspace leads to a cluttered mind. So if you are sitting there and your desk is covered in shit, just random shit, and you're like, this thing I'm meant to get back to, and these books I haven't put away, and these clothes were from yesterday, they're all extra stimuli and they're all grabbing your attention, even if you are sitting down to focus on one other thing, like you're not consciously focusing on them. They're grabbing your attention where they shouldn't be, and that's what makes it so much more difficult to actually focus on what you're focusing on. So in conclusion, we definitely want to be working with a tidy workspace. I hate saying that, it sounds so like naggy, but the results are epic. And all this to say about shutting it down for the day, only the confidence that you're done with work till the next day is enough to convince your brain to downshift to a level where it can begin to recharge for that next day. So with that in mind, squeezing more work out of your evenings might reduce your effectiveness enough to get less done the following day. So are you the kind of person who is doing that? Are you like going about your day and then you're like, you know what, I've actually got a bit of time this evening to work through this one thing? Maybe that time would genuinely be better spent completely shutting off from it so that you can go back to it tomorrow completely refreshed. Maybe you've got more solutions to problems that have gone on in your subconscious mind. You haven't exhausted your attention and your willpower, and you actually can ease right into the next day of work, and ideas will flow, inspiration will flow. So that leads us to the end of the end of page 149, the start of page 150. We will be reading to page 200 for the next video, which is 2 weeks from today. And I have to say, I am very grateful for these videos. I'm so glad I had this idea because it is making me read way more. I will put my hands up and say I was putting it off. I love reading self-help books. I love buying them even more than I love reading them, I think. But this has really helped me stay accountable to actually read them. And it's almost time to start thinking about our next book. If you're not following on Instagram, I will definitely have polls up on there. So definitely vote on the poll when you see that. That's at More to Life Kate on Instagram. And I'll also link it so that you have enough time to get the book before we start the next book. But that is the end of today's video. That's the end of the insights. If you've any other insights that you've gotten between page 100 and 150, or any insights that you've gotten just from me talking about these ideas that we fleshed out today, go ahead and comment down below or DM me on Instagram. But yeah, other than that, I will see you in a week.